Take Review, where college professors talk film, providing insight, not assigning homework. I'm your host, Jen Sobchak-Bankard, and I'm here with two men getting cold feet. First, his laugh is repulsive. It's the best laugh. It's PT McNiff. How's it going, PT?
Do you know what the most important part about being a DJ is? It's not the music. It's showing up. I'm doing great, Jen. How are you?
I'm doing so much better now that I remembered that joke. And you know how he gets. He'll fixate on something and won't let it go. It's Greg Cass. How's it going, Greg?
All right. Let's do a little warm up. Let's get up on our feet. All right. Now, don't forget to smile. Just smile naturally. Yep. Jen, just a completely natural smile. Just a regular human smile. I'm great, Jen. It's I'm so excited to talk about this movie because I whatever we think of the quality of it, I think it's going to be a blast to talk about because it's a pretty wild time.
Agreed. Though I am disappointed you forgot the best part of that bit, which is just smile like you would in life. Right? Dear listeners, those were all references to the film we are here to review today, Christopher Borgle's The Drama, starring Zendaya and Robert Pattinson. The twisty A24 film is out in theaters now. If you are listening to us for the first time, we will have a spoiler-free section design for those who haven't seen the film yet. And then with a very clear alert, we will shift into spoiler mode for the rest of the show. And please, I know you can tune out during, it's like on an airplane when they do the safety stuff. Like you just tune out during this intro part. But seriously, there's huge spoilers that the marketing team for this movie have managed to protect it, so we want to too. So, but first, PT, if listeners think we're the love of their life after listening to this episode, what can they do?
If they really like it when we use your words, then they should follow the Long Take Review wherever they get their podcasts. We host the feed on Jen's Substack at thelongtake.substack.com, but you can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, YouTube, and many more. Wherever you're listening right now, you can find us there. You can also follow us on social media. We are on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at The Long Take Review. We are also on Letterboxd. You can follow the account at LTR Pod, or you can search for the hashtag LTR Pod to see what each of us individually has been watching or 3/4 watching. Jen?
Thanks, VT. Listeners, that was a poke at me for something we were talking about off mic that I can't finish movies.
A poke? What? That's, wow. I don't know about that. That sounds
slander?
Like
I don't know.
Accurate reporting of facts?
Jab. Oh, that's true. It's true. All right. So as always, we want to start with the short take. What was everybody's general reaction to The Drama?
I was very excited about this movie from the moment I saw the fake engagement announcement in my local newspaper because this is a Boston movie, and so that always adds a little bit of extra fun to it. And I have some shout outs I want to get to eventually, but I will say I went in pretty cold. I'd seen the first trailer, which is what I alluded to in my opening quote. Because there is a lot that's not safe. I had like 4 choices that I knew I couldn't say. But I found myself really enjoying this. It's a pretty wild night at the movies, and I have since recommended this movie by saying, I don't know if it's a great movie, but you're gonna have a lot to think about, and you're gonna want to chew it over. And it's exciting to be able to talk about it tonight. So that is my continued endorsement. I think people should go see this one and check it out. I think it's doing pretty well, and it's kind of a buzzy counter programming to some of the kind of more commercial stuff that's been out this spring. So do it. These are movie stars doing movie star things. Before they do the other movie star things this year. So I absolutely recommend this. PT, you're at a funny place to review this movie. What did you think?
Well, I agree with you on sort of the core idea. This is very fun, and this is a movie that people should be checking out. I was not as excited for it going into it, not just because I'm not in Boston currently right now, so I don't get that local buzz around the filming of it. But more so that I was like, this felt like one of those movies that like some people would be like, it's really good. And then I would go see it and be like, it's okay. Like I was worried, obviously not the same kind of movie as Hamnet, but I was worried for a Hamnet letdown. I had a great time. I had a blast. I thought this was very funny. And most of the people in my screening did too. I have seen conflicting reports of audience reactions, which we can get into. But I think there's a lot of comedy here. There's also a lot of titular drama to think about as well. And I would say leaving the theater, I was like, a lot of fun, lots to talk about, great movie to go and see movie stars, see it with other people, and then have a conversation about it, which is why I'm very excited to do this. I did go out and have a conversation with Jasmine after this. We went to dinner after. We talked basically the whole time about the movie. So, like sometimes you go see a movie and you're just sort of like, yeah, that was fun. And there's nothing much to say afterwards. I will say as time has gone on, I do think this movie might be great. I think this movie is actually exceptionally well done. I don't know. I can't talk about it until we get to spoiler territory. But I have strong beliefs that this is something that is. There's a lot of really good stuff happening here, and I think it's really smartly constructed. So that's all I will say. Both Jen and Greg in the chat are very worried that the conversations Jasmine and I had are going to lead to us no longer staying together or breaking up. No, that does not happen. We're fine. But we can discuss more once we get to spoiler mode. Jen, what did you think about the drama?
I was extremely stressed out during this whole movie, but not necessarily in a bad way. I do agree that it is very funny, but I think I was really on the edge of my seat the entire time, waiting for bad things to happen, and kind of a sense of dread and kind of like, what's going to happen? Which for me in the moment was like, oh my gosh, this movie, like it's going to give me a heart attack. But I agree with both of you that it's extremely well done. And for a movie of this type, I think I was expecting something not as sophisticated in its construction. And the screenplay, I think, exceeded my expectations in terms of the character development and kind of like smart callbacks to different parts of the script that kind of made it congeal a little bit more than I think it had to. Because I think this movie to me had been pitched as like crazy things are gonna happen, like you'll never guess the twist, right? And so like with a kind of movie like that, I think it oftentimes can like use that as a crutch and kind of like not invest in other parts of the story, if that makes sense. Whereas I didn't feel that way walking out of the theater with this movie. Like I was kind of like, oh, like, wow, yes, that was very stressful and there were a big twist and it was kind of nuts, but like it wasn't like doing that in a sensationalized way. It was doing it in a pretty smart way, which I appreciated. And then also like we haven't mentioned the Robert Pattinson and Zendaya are just like cooking with gas in this movie. It is incredible. It's like, I feel like even if you don't like what the movie's about, ultimately, you cannot deny that this is an amazing showcase for the two of them as actors. And having seen their very kind of playful press tour, I don't know if anyone has like, I guess I'm reporting in as social media correspondent, like, so I don't know if the two of you have been exposed to this, but they've had a really like really cute fun to the point where people on the internet are like stop trying to make it awkward, because I think it's like people are pitting their press tour against was it Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney that they try to imply. Oh no, it was more recent, right? Well, I think some people mentioned that, but like more recently, Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi for Wuthering Heights. A lot of people were like, they're playing into this a little too much. And then the internet in response was like, see, these are two people who are in committed relationships with other people and don't need to pretend like they're having an affair with each other just to promote their movie. This is how it's done, kind of thing. Anyway, that's a long tangent. That's doesn't necessarily belong in short take. But yeah, I really appreciated this movie, enjoyed it a lot. Was kind of needed like an inhaler afterwards. But that said, yeah, like we're doing a really great job. Great job, everybody, not spoiling this movie so far. Good restraint. But I think we're going to push that a little, like probably push the limits of that in recommendation algorithm. Can we sort of like pin down the genre of this movie or what this movie is without spoiling it, do you think? Like how do we dance around this in a way that can be helpful for people?
Greg, I don't know if you had an answer.
No, I did. Please.
Okay.
If the answer is no, then that's fine.
No. I think that we can, because I have been thinking about the obviously thinking about this, I feel like this was the hardest part of preparing for this episode, was like, what do we do here? I landed on sort of two pieces of information. One is thinking about this as like, it's not exactly this, but it kind of is in the zone of a comedy of manners, where it's just sort of like, what are the expectations people have in relationships? What are the expectations people have in society and for other people? And it's very kind of dark comedy in that regard. And again, has like dramatic elements as well that are in here. But I think my enjoyment of it at its core was the sort of like this kind of question of just like, what is okay? What is over the line? What is something that, like, how do you respond to something when like something maybe over the line has happened, and how do people interact around all of this? And that's what I think is very enjoyable. And with that, and trying to figure out, okay, what could I tie that to? The idea one idea I kept coming back to, which I don't think is a good one because I think this is overselling it as a comedy, but I did kept thinking this is an extended messed up Larry David style story of like from a Seinfeld or Curb, where it's like, you shouldn't have done that. Like, that's not a thing that you should do. Like, what are we doing? And like people kind of squabbling about that, and but with more emotion and less aiming for straight comedy. And then I kept going back to, I saw this at the Vista where they were showing it on 35 millimeter. Delightful to see it on a print. And they had the curated trailers beforehand. And I cannot remember, because I don't think I've seen it, what the second movie was, but the first and third movie were Danny DeVito's War of the Roses and Woody Allen's Husbands and Wives. And those are not good comps in terms of what happens in this movie, but they are good comps in terms of like relationship problems and deteriorations and questions and this sort of this flux that goes on. And I think that, again, just thinking about with the trailer I saw, I only saw one trailer for this. I don't know what else was talked about there, but I don't think it's giving too much away to say it's called The Drama. And every ad I've seen for it has included there's been some drama from Robert Pattinson, which is the undertold summary of what's been going on. And so, a relationship where there's some drama. And if you want to see some of that, and especially like this idea of it's an adult story, grown-up story about people who are dealing with getting married and having themselves on the precipice of this life change, and trying to deal with the dynamics of that and the fallout of unexpected things interfering with it. With two big movie stars who are being great, as Jen said, are just like out of control, over the top good at being movie stars, but also being characters in the movie, then this could be something that you like. And I will say, while filibustering during all of that, I did receive confirmation that I can't explain what Greg was referencing earlier, which is that Jasmine and I have gotten engaged. So we are going to be getting married.
Yay.
And both Greg and Jen have been worried that going to see this movie would potentially lead to us calling off the wedding, which we're not going to do. But we did double check to make sure that we don't have anything overlapping with what happens with the characters in the movie. That was step one of the conversation afterwards. But yes. So that's podcast official breaking news.
There's also
just in off the wire. It's your host, Love Life News.
Oh, I love it. I was gonna say I don't have anything on my soundboard that is celebratory, which maybe is a larger problem.
I mean, you could have just dropped Indiana Jones, but that's fine.
Oh,
well, you will walk down the aisle to the Oscar theme song, right?
Oh, I thought you wanted me to walk down the aisle to just a loop of Harrison Ford doing the Indiana Jones theme on Shrinking, and that you want that the whole way through.
All right. Any response to that, it needs to be in spoiler mode, so I'm gonna hold off.
Okay. So there's no one else had any recommendation.
I think we got to respect the marketing department that actually never promises this is a rom-com, and yet the majority of America saw two sexy movie stars and we're like, this is going to be a sexy, fun time, very romantic. And I love thinking about what kind of night those couples had.
Of course, from the director of Dream Scenario, we all expected a rom-com coming next.
Well, so I thought about The Materialists a lot during this movie, but that's again sort of like what PT was saying earlier. that's not necessarily because they're similar like at all, but I do feel like they kind of hit on similar issues or similar, you know what I mean? Like it again, I'm being intentionally vague so I don't spoil anything, but yeah, it's weird because I do think there's a way in which you can view this as a very unconventional romantic comedy or a dark romantic comedy. There's a way in which you can think about this as like a psychological thriller. You can think of this as like, I don't know, like, because yeah, there is a little bit of like, I think sort of what we wanted from After the Hunt, but didn't quite get. And you know what I mean? And well, no, I mean, not
Jen. didn't very much not get.
Well, I don't. Yeah, and I don't mean that in terms of the plot or the story at all, but like in terms of the tone. Like there are all these people who are kind of like there's drama in between them, and like what are they gonna do? And like, yeah. So I do feel like, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to get, which I think is a sign that this is a really good and interesting movie, right? If you can't pin something down and put it in a box, then I think that's a good thing ultimately.
I agree. I want to say one last thing before we go to spoiler mode, and maybe this is too much and you should cut it, but I think I'm going to try it and we'll see. And please, Jen, cut if it's too far. I did think going into the movie that like all this talk about like we can't say what the drama is. The trailer is like there's something that's a secret, blah 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 blah. And so I went in and I was pretty convinced. I was like, you know what's going to be? Nothing. There's nothing, but they think it's something. And that's the whole movie is they think it's something. And I will say, and this is where it might be a spoiler, and Jen, if you choose, you can cut it, that like there is something, and it is definitely not nothing. It is something. And that like it is something that like there are a number of people, and I have heard and seen reports of people who were like, oh, I don't want to think about that at a movie, and that's something I avoid, and that's something I don't want to deal with. So I wish I hadn't seen this. If you have topics like that in your life where you're like, I fastidiously avoid topics that really bother me, maybe you should go look up spoilers for the drama to make sure this isn't lining up with what you're worried about. Even though I think you should see this in a theater, I think seeing it with the crowd is great. I think you should see movie stars being movie stars in a great big movie. But if there is something that is like a traumatic topic that could like undermine your ability to like have a enjoyable evening or even like a stable evening, maybe look it up so you don't get trapped in a bad situation and then you blame us, understandably. So that's all. Is that like it is something, and it's definitely something that could like, you know, people might be real thrown off by what it is.
I will just add, because I haven't weighed in, if you're not into cringe, this is not for you. You know, my wife, who I love very much, like hates that like something about Mary meet the parents. Like, isn't it funny how awkward this person is type humor? And that's what this is for the majority of the runtime. So if that is something that makes you uncomfortable, I guess that's my anti-recommendation algorithm, which is avoid this if that's one of your kind of you know, danger zones. So but if you can put up with it, I think, you know, it is a dark comedy. If you're into the dark and into the comedy, you get some good. I stole the word cackle from Jen and PT, and this is just a deeply just cackle a whole bunch movie. So
my last question is, you know, because we've mentioned movie stars many times, if someone is a fan of Zendaya or Robert Pattinson from other things, let's say like Dune or The Batman, shout out to Carl. You know, what are like, are we based on that alone, are we recommending that they go see this, or is it going to weird them out to see these two actors in this movie?
I'm a bad person because I'm like, if it's going to weird them out, they should be weirded out. That's good. Like good. Like it's a good experience for you. You know, I don't put hair on your chest. It's great. Yeah, so I think they are so good in this that if you are a fan of them, yes, you'll want to see this, even if it's not exactly in the zone that's your, you know, you like to go see big movies about, you know, space or about superheroes. This is not that, but maybe that's an in for you, is to be able to go and see, because I think both of them are quite good in this, and you can have a good time. But I think part of the magic of, I think especially Robert Pattinson, is like he's very different from project to project, and that's why I think he's emerged as someone that everyone's like, wow, he's just one of our best reasonably young actors. I know he claims he's Gen Z, but he's really a millennial. But whatever, he's not like young. He's not in his 20s, but still, everyone's like, wow, like he's so good. The guy from Twilight, who knew? But now we all know, and I think in that sense, yeah, it's worth seeing. But it's possible that you would go see it if you were like, I liked Twilight and I liked Challengers, like. Maybe I should like Challengers. Maybe you would like this. I don't know.
I was going to say that's not that
Challengers. Those people are going to be happy.
Yeah, those people are really great.
Yeah, if you're like, oh, I really like Greatest Showman and Spider-Man. I wonder what else Zendaya can do. That's a bit of a turn, but I would say in the case of both of them, I didn't know they had this in them, and I loved it. So I think if you've liked any of their performances, I think this is a great way to see them stretch a little bit.
Amazing. All right, we've done this long enough. Let's let the floodgates loose. So if you have not seen the drama, we're about to spoil the drama, including
really shut it off. Like, we know some of you, like, we get, but really, like, we promise you don't want to hear what's about to come. You really don't.
Yeah. So turn back now. Rejoin. We'll still be here after you've seen the movie, right?
Even if you wait till the second part until it's PVOD, you'll be all set. I'll send you an A24 gift card. Just turn off, and we'll get you a copy later.
All right, spoiler mode happens now. All right, if you were tuning out, or someone was trying to talk to you and interrupting your experience of listening to us, which happens to me all the time. Not listening to us, but listening to other podcasts. Actually, no, also listening to us because sometimes I'm editing and someone tries to talk to me and I'm like, anyway, we're going to issue one more final, last chance, last call, spoiler warning. Like, we're going to start with the biggest spoiler, the titular drama. Okay.
Done.
So towards the end of the first act, some people were saying like 30 minutes in. That feels right. Like, yeah, I guess
maybe a little earlier than that. That feels kind of, but anyway.
Yeah, because there's kind of like an extended montage of like the meet cute.
Yeah, the speech
and like
elements
them being,
of the speech.
like everything being nice. Yeah, but anyway, so we learn that Zendaya's character Emma planned and thought about and fantasized about, but did not actually go through with a mass shooting at her high school when she was 15. So that's the biggest bomb. We've dropped it. If you didn't hear all of our spoiler warnings, I'm really sorry.
What a funny comedy. It's hilarious, everybody.
Right,
really. Go see it in the theater.
We
Laugh with the crowd.
So, and to me, it's like, this isn't just like a big reveal that happens, but it is like so much of a pivot point for the plot of the movie, because then everything else that happens in the movie is like a domino effect from this one scene in which she confesses this to her fiance and their two friends who are also going to be in the wedding parties. And I guess like, if you're here, you better have seen the movie. So I don't need to over explain the context in which this reveal happens, but I guess let's just talk about like the shock value of this. Like, was there any way in which you could have anticipated that being the big twist, based on either what you knew about the movie going into it or anything like that? Like, how much of a surprise was this actually?
So I knew enough that the conversation was, what's the worst thing you've ever done? And that whatever she answered was going to derail this. And so I was like, I wonder what could you possibly say in that context that would, be
so bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say, I hate that this is being called a twist. That's not a slam on you, Jen, but this is not this is just the plot. Like, this isn't like, surprise, he was dead the whole time, or it's a sled. This was really like, the point of this movie.
I mean, I think it's a twist. I think it's a twist because I think you're right. But I think it's a twist if you spend that first 20 to 30 minutes thinking that's the whole movie.
Yeah,
right. Because it is kind of like, oh, this is what this would be like if this were a pure romantic comedy about them meeting and falling in love.
Conflict in this feature film? I come for everything to be perfect and no problems at all to arise. So I will say despite that, and knowing that like we're about to hear Zendaya say something is the worst thing ever, I was completely shocked they went here. And yet I will say I actually think this is incredibly sensitive in what they present, which is that this is a conversation we should have. And there's a moment late in the film where I believe it's Robert Pattinson's character is essentially saying like, given how many shootings there have to be a lot more people like Emma who have considered this and not gone through with it. And what do you do with that? And there's humor involved, there's anxiety involved. I think it really plays up that moment right before your wedding where you're like, am I really about to do this? Am I going to like lock myself into this forever? Sorry, PT. And like, I don't know this person well enough. Like I think I probably knew my girlfriend, wife now, the longest before we got married. But there was still that like, do I know everything about them? Like what else is there? And I think this movie is so smart about playing up that moment with just the absolute nightmare scenario and then lasting another hour and a half asking really smart questions about if you can forgive somebody, if you could, if you should, if you should just sleep with your museum friend instead, like all the hard hitting questions.
Yeah, I like you, Greg. I saw the trailer, and the trailer was had that setup of like we're all going to go around, we're going to say the worst thing we've ever done. I didn't know the exact context was them staying late at a food tasting to make the people. Yeah, I one thing I love about this is the low key like these may all be terrible people anyway. Like even before we get to this point, there's a lot of problems with the way they're handling themselves. But they're making the staff stay late to give them wine, and they end up doing playing this little game, and that is something that Zendaya's character says Emma is the pivot point for the whole movie. Makes sense. End of Act 1, plot point 1. That's I'm not surprised that happened. Again, going in, there was like, again, just walking from the car, Jasmine and I were just like, okay, real quick, we both knew this. What's going on? And Jasmine was like, she killed someone. Like, boom, like, maybe not intentionally, but whatever. To Greg's point, what could be so bad? And that, something like that. And again, my take was to try to zag and be like, it's nothing, but he gets worried that it is something and that she won't say what it is.
It's a paranoid thing.
Yeah. Yes. And so it's all about him being paranoid. And that's why they've been focusing on it so much. So yeah, when it's revealed, it was just like you could feel in the theater, like it was not like full, but there was at least like 100 other people probably in the theater. And it was like a laughter of disbelief that was just like, wow, okay, like we're doing this. Oof. But I think to Greg's point, the fact that it is something that I think is so like immediately repulsive as a concept and also scary and also something you don't really want to think about and you don't want to engage with. And you're just like, oh God, why don't I just not think about that? Or why don't I like you, but you can't because this is the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. Then, it is very well done. And the reactions of other people to this news this story at that table. And then as it sort of leaks out in other directions. I think are really interesting. And part of why I was saying before we got into this, why I'm like, this movie might actually be great, is it not only gets a lot of good nuance from the way the characters sort of twist around this and kind of grow and like reveal themselves around this core secret, but also the sort of ways in which through this, it kind of condemns the like passivity we all have around just like, in America at least, or in America exclusively, where it's just sort of like, oh yeah, that's kind of a thing that happens, I guess. That's tough. Hope that's not me any day. And that, there's a lot of interesting stuff I think in there. And I think this as the secret is really well calibrated to get people to respond in an unexpected way because it is so unexpected. And I really can't believe they lasted as long as they did, not having this become the movie about the potential school shooter, which I feel like it so easily could have been.
So this movie got spoiled for me and I didn't even know. And which is going to segue into what I want to talk about next, and is bridging off of what PT just said. But so I had seen a headline of like a news article or a think piece or something that was like, viewers of the drama like get offended or upset by joke about school shooting. And I just like scroll past that and I was like, oh, that's weird. But in my head, I registered that as like, oh, they must make like one offhanded joke about school shootings. And it's so it still didn't spoil it for me, because at no point until the moment she says it did I click of like, oh, that's what that article was about. Like I never like, you know what I mean? It never made it past, oh, that's weird, I wonder how that'll come up in the movie. But in retrospect, I was like, oh man, they spoiled that. So I guess it worked. The surprise worked 100% on me. I didn't, even if I had the information I needed to know what was going to happen, my brain still didn't go there. But so there has been actually quite a lot of not like quite a lot, I guess. There has been some backlash that I've seen, or the other critics have referenced, about people not liking this movie. And if you go on Letterboxd, like people who give this movie like 2 stars are usually talking about the school shooting aspect of it. Either that it's like not developed enough, or like it's not going there. It's like being too safe with the topic, or like isn't exploring it in a meaningful way, or that it's just straight up like offensive or insensitive or something like that. Like what do we make of that reaction? Because I think the 3 of us did not have that reaction, it sounds like.
I think PT said it exactly right. And my insensitive way of saying it is like, oh, you're offended? Good. Right? Like,
Right.
you know, I think, Jen, we're in our 20th year of teaching this year, or maybe you're in your 21st, Jen. And I cannot remember a time I've done research papers where students didn't write about mass shootings and their personal like reaction to them and offense to them. And it's like, that's an insane amount of time that we just have decided not to talk about these things and not think about it. So I, you know, and I do think there are a couple aspects that are played for comedy, but it's dark comedy. So what comes to mind is the revelation that she didn't go through with it because there was a different mass shooting at their mall the week of her mass shooting.
Now, Greg, it wasn't a mass shooting because only 3 people died, and it has to be 4.
That's right. And like, that's a genius joke, and it's a very much an only in America joke. Could your mass shooting get canceled because you wouldn't get big enough headlines because of the other mass shooting? And like I completely understand that if you got sideswiped by this, you know, especially if you had survived gun violence, or somebody I mean, essentially Alana Haim's character, somebody had been affected by it. I can understand you being upset. You have the right to be mad that you got surprised. But I can also see you saying like, well, good, because I have to deal with this every day, or I have the memory of these events, and I think America should be thinking more about them. So I kind of don't have time for this criticism. I think, you know, then let's do something about the actual reality of it, not get mad about a Zendaya movie.
Yeah, I agree with Greg. I would draw the distinction, and this is again, maybe it got cut. I honestly don't know. But like what I was trying to say before the spoiler warning is there may be people who have an experience with something like this, and it is like legitimately traumatizing, or bringing up old trauma to be sort of reminded about the idea of that. And if they think I'm going to see a relatively lighthearted romantic comedy, or even a romantic, you know, drama with some comedic elements, and they're suddenly hit with this sort of current event, it might mess up their day or their week, and they'd be legitimately sad. That's one thing, and I do understand the cost of everyone else getting a fun reveal of the secret, and it being this sort of like, oh my god, like chilling, like sort of terrible to say, kind of gleefully chilling. Like it's so dark and so like third rail that it's like, ooh, like I'm way more excited now about what's going to happen. This is wild. For us, for you know, like sickos out there, is that people who are actually potentially in danger or threatened by this would be upset. So I have sympathy for them, and I do hope that like if they know I have a trauma, there's other things that could have, you know, tripped that. They could look it up and be like, I want to make sure it's not about, you know, I don't know, child abuse or something, where it's like, oh yeah, I don't want to be exposed to that. But for people who are just like, oh, this made me feel weird and uncomfortable, I don't like that, so it's bad. Like, okay, like, well, deal with life. sorry, the world's pretty bad, and you need to be a part of, be a part of talking about solving it if you don't like it, and otherwise, like, just sorry, like, other folks have it shoved in their face in a much worse way. So, you get to, you have to sit through it for another hour of this hour and 40-minute movie.
Yeah, and I do think there's enough specificity so that's like Emma's individual experience kind of engaging with this issue. It's not doing it with broad strokes, and in a way that really adds a lot of layers to the moral judgment that the characters in the movie or we as the audience might make in response to learning this about her. Because it's like, if she had done the thing that PT was saying that Jasmine had anticipated, was like, she had killed somebody, I think that would have been like too easy, in the sense of like too easy to just dismiss as like, oh, that's awful, right? Like, and that's something that she should have not. There's not enough nuance there in terms of like, oh well, if you look at it this way or whatever. But because it is something, again, that she didn't actually do, but she thought about doing and planned to do, but didn't do. And then the other layer that we mentioned earlier of like, it didn't happen not because of any motivation on her part. It was like largely of circumstance that completely kind of course corrected her to not just being not a mass shooter, but actually being a gun control activist, right? And because of that, I think the movie is trying to engage with like a really big moral philosophy question of like, does your intent or motivation behind something that is bad change the way that we judge it, right? Because like, I think the Charlie character that Robert Pattinson plays, he really kind of bends over backwards to like rationalize, and he creates this like false narrative of like, oh well, she had all this trauma from watching her childhood friend die in a car accident, when like we see this, he tells that to other people, we see in the conversation with her that she's like, no, I don't think that was relevant at all, like, you know what I mean, like she was like, and I didn't actually witness it, like she's correcting him, and he's trying to kind of like create this whole story around what would justify her having thought about this and wanting to do this, and he also kind of starts really prodding her to be like, well, like, why did you not go through with it, right? Because and so the movie really asks us to think about, does the answer to that question ultimately matter? And I don't think it gives any easy answers, but I think that like and I don't think you could have done that with something else. Like, there's something very specific about this being her secret that opens up a lot of other questions philosophically.
And I want to just say exactly what you said in a slightly different way. She is exactly what we want to happen, right? We want these kids who are considering these violent things, I mean, it'd be better if they never considered them, to be caught up in the moment and essentially be saved and redeem themselves and find inclusion and find their crowd. And yet here we have this great moral question of, but can you still hold that against them? And I loved the joke where he then flashes to when she gets really mad at some guy on the street and throws her drink at his cab, and it's like, I'm walking in the crosswalk, and it's like freaking out. And it's like so good. And then slapping him during sex. Like,
yeah, there's like three or four things. So yeah.
It's interesting, and I agree with what you're saying, Greg, and I also agree with what you were saying, Jen. We're all just agreeing. It's lovely. But I think that like part of what makes it so interesting and the sort of extra step that makes it thorny is there wasn't a moment of clarity where it was like, this is terrible, I shouldn't do this. But instead it was like, oh, I can't do this right now because of this other thing. And then circumstances swept her up in another direction. I will say it is interesting that, Greg was like, oh, and then she found her people, she found her community, like there was sort of salvation there. But like, it does seem like that was only temporary because those people are not in her life anymore. The friend she made in high school and whatever people she might have talked to in college, like she only seems to interact with a coworker and her husband's friend's wife, or whatever partner. I don't know. That she doesn't really have like other like peers that she is close with.
And there's a vanity spin on it too, because it's not just that she found her people, but it's like, oh, and you can speak for us because you're really great. And it's like, oh, the cute boy in high school thought I was great, so I could survive. And
yes,
you're right. So you're right. But also, like, again, that's what we want to happen. Like
Sure.
even
Yeah.
for the wrong reasons, but it's just crazy that then because I think the movie is accurate that somebody who admits this will never find forgiveness from the people that know it.
Mhm.
Ugh. Right, but I think the movie also works really hard to try to get us not to do that. Right? That we have a layer of not remove, but like the characters in the story with her are this is unforgivable, this is cross line, this changes everything. But the movie really does try to give us a lot of context about her experience with this that muddies that a little bit, at least for me, like in terms of like, well, we can't like, there's so many things working against this, like, and I guess we're skipping ahead to the we put the question, would or could you forgive Emma? And I think it's tough to decide one way or the other, but I think by the end of the movie, I'm leaning towards I could, because she was only 15, because they sort of showed that she's kind of fallen prey to like a social media trend, or like there's like a cultural thing happening that's influencing her because she was having such a tough time at school. Like, but I don't know how did it land for you two?
My two things I'll say. First, to your point about like, we get all these sort of windows into, what she thought, and we do, and we hear what she's saying, and she's clearly very distraught. And I think that what Greg was saying is right, where it's like in many ways this has been for what it seems like half of her life since this period, this window of time happened. This has been her worst fear, is other people knowing that she had done this, and then like her losing everything that she may have gained, whatever. It certainly now she's like, she has Charlie, and she has her friends, and and she has a wedding planned, and all of that. Her parents are coming, blah blah blah, and like all of that could fall apart, and in some ways does. Like this is her worst fear. But I will say, to completely screw up the order of things in the outline of like, one of the things that comes up is in our outline later is sort of like, oh, did we switch over to Charlie's perspective? I believe we're in Charlie's perspective the whole time. Every time there's a dream sequence, every time there's a memory, every time there's a flashback, it's his memory or him projecting what he thinks Emma is thinking or remembering, and what she may have had going on in her mind. Maybe there's one time when she's asleep and she wakes up, and we're supposed to have seen her dream. But I think we're sticking with him for the most part. So we're also sort of part of him constructing the framework for him allowing this in his life and being okay with it. So I think sometimes in the same way as we never see her in the past, the actual way she responded to her neighbor dying, we see his concocted version where she's standing on the street watching blood pour out of this woman's head, and she's like, I never did that. Like, what are you talking about? So that's interesting in that, like, we're not necessarily getting the reality of what should forgive her, but we're getting the person who wants to forgive's vision of forgiveness. In terms of forgiving, the potentially unfair, but still sort of my immediate response when this came up in the post-movie conversation is I would be less like upset about while upset, I would be less upset about the reality that this is a thing that happened when this person was 15 than the fact that it was this scenario of people sitting around drinking and a relatively light game of like, what's the worst thing you've ever done, is how I find out about it. Like this deep into a relationship where it would be like, oh, so like you have this like burdensome secret that like is clearly a huge thing for you. That's like the worst, darkest thing ever, but you never wanted to share it. And at some point she says she hoped she would just live her whole life and never tell anyone and never tell him. Yeah. That's what I would be a little bit more like, okay, like that's weird. Like, or I don't know, like that would in a way feel worse than something that was like bad, would have been bad, but also, there are all these like potentially like, oh yeah, like it would be awful to be in such a dark place where to have gotten to that point, like you're not that person now, clearly, blah, blah, blah. Or maybe not clearly again, given the coffee cup being thrown and the slapping, but and the knife for the smoothie. But yeah, it's I would be a little bit more. I'll be a little bit more worried.
Why carry the knife into the other room? Just put it down on the counter. Like that's easy.
You have to know what it looks like. You have to be aware of what this is going to do.
I loved the coffee mug in the trash because it was like, yeah, I'm not bothered by it, but I'm a little bothered by it. And that's like
that's correct.
my own passive aggressive way of dealing with things and like home and work. So, um, and well, number one, like it's Zendaya. Just say it's okay. Like stick around. I saw so many letterbox reviews that were like, "This movie is funny." PT and I just talked last week about when they pretended Rachel McAdams was frumpy and terrible. Kind of the same thing going on here, but I do like that they leaned into it and played against type, right? Like it's very easy to see a obvious version of this script that's Charlie as the potential shooter, and I really like that they played against this. I think, I mean, who can even project what we would do in said scenario? But I do think I'd like to think I could forgive her and see some redemption in the fact that she didn't go through with it. I understand everything you said about there's no revelatory moment, like I should not do this. And yet it's like, can we really, like, I don't know. My experience of intimate friendships, relationships, marriage, all that, it's like you're really going to hold everything against the other person, and like show me a person who didn't do bad things when they were 15 and I will show you a boring person I don't want to hang out with. So maybe this is the extreme version of this, but like I don't think we should all be holding that against everyone. And I actually really like PT's point. It was striking to me just now when it's like, well, but is it the keeping of the secret that's worse than the admitting it? And I think that's a really smart point. And still, I want to believe I could move forward from this, perhaps without projectile vomiting. Which, just shout out, didn't want to spoil it in the recommendation algorithm. But if you got a problem with vomit, skip this one because there's some really good vomit takes in this.
And the timing of it is really good because there were a couple that I didn't see coming, and it's like,
Oh, and I wanted to point out, this is not me trying to actually PT, but actually PT. I think there are a couple other moments where we're fully in Emma's perspective. There's one where she seems to almost reveal that she shot a dog as practice. And I don't believe it's a fantasy.
Okay.
And to me, this is just my own messed up sensibilities. That felt so much worse than they almost did a mass shooting that she shot an innocent dog for practice, right? And that's like sociopath behavior. And then the second one is, I believe she wakes up the morning after and fantasizes that that he has already called the police. And it stood out to me because they put him in the public garden and you see the Goodwill Hunting bench. I'm like, you're in Boston. I know what you're doing.
It's him and his friend is like, you just go back to England right now. And I'll go get your stuff. I'll call the police to protect me. You're right. That does happen. And let me ask you this question, Greg. What if she only planned to shoot the dog, but then didn't shoot the dog? Where are you on that?
I would total forgiveness, right?
Yeah,
it's like because she didn't actually do it, and like that could be a step towards, oh wait, I'm not really serious about this.
Right, it's true.
The editing in this is so good.
Yeah,
the discussion we're having is making me remember that it does such a good job of showing that memories, thoughts, flashbacks, whatever those kind of like cut to other things might be, that they're always fragmented and like interrupted. Do you know what I mean? Like they're never complete. It's like they're starting and stopping in fits and spurts, and kind of like in a way that like your actual memory would. And maybe I'm spoiling whatever I had for a rhetorical situation, but but it's coming up now. So
let's do it. Let's just go.
Do it. Hit it.
All right, sure.
Boop, boop, boop.
Rhetorical situation, a segment in which we look at a film through the lens of our academic experience. So all of our regular co-hosts are writing professors. We like to have this section of the episode dedicated to making connections to our experience as scholars and teachers in the teaching of writing. The rhetorical situation refers to any contextual factors that influence composing and interpretation. Though anything like that is on the table in this segment. But I brought up memory just now, and like and I did see that there was a really nice like the editing seemed to try to imitate like cognitive processes in a way that I thought was really interesting. Did either of you feel that way about the editing, or did you just see them as kind of traditional flashback?
Well, I mean, maybe I'm influenced by the fact that the director Borgley, is that the correct pronunciation?
That sounds right.
What we're going with, at least. He directed Dream Scenario, which is a movie from a few years ago starring Nicolas Cage that was very rooted in sort of dream experience. For those who may not recall, the sort of pitch of that movie was Nicolas Cage is this sort of schlubby professor. We have no foothold in that concept, who suddenly, for some reason, ends up appearing in the dreams of like, it was like some small but still significant percentage of the population, and he got this like minor celebrity because of that. And that movie, like, I don't think it fully held up to the full length of its movie, but interesting concept, had some fun stuff in it. So maybe because I knew that going into this movie, I felt like, oh, this is dream logic, right? This is and also like there's those moments when it's like, you know, I don't want to call them intrusive thoughts, but like there are a few times when it's like you're having your mind wanders, you start thinking about other things, especially when you're preoccupied, and that there's, you know, it is capturing that feel. And honestly, the biggest like bump I had in the whole movie, which is not a problem, it was a me issue more than the movie, was they show, you know, after things have been sort of not progressing super well. I think it's after they fired the DJ. They, if not right after that, soon after that, they show, it shows very quickly just Robert Pattinson and Zendaya, Charlie and Emma sleeping, both sort of on their backs, looking up and next to each other. And then the next shot is like the wedding, and it's like this sort of from the outside, like moving in and going into where the ceremony is, and showing the room where earlier Robert Pattinson had the vision of all the guests having been shot, which was a great, that was a fun sequence. I mean, terrible, but great. And I thought for the first like 5 minutes of the wedding sequence, this was a dream. I was like, oh, this is what Robert Pattinson is dreaming would happen at the wedding. And then I was like, nothing's really going wrong. Like it's all a little awkward, but nothing is going off. And then I finally had to admit, this is just the wedding. Like we're at the point where the wedding's going to happen in the movie, and we are not in Robert Pattinson's head where he's dreaming what's going to unfold. So I thought this worked really well. Again, too well that it almost set me up for failure to think the movie was going in one direction when it wasn't. But I liked those snippets a lot. I thought it worked really well at capturing this. I could see this is going to be a movie that when it hits streaming, it's going to get a lot of bad Letterboxd reviews. People being like, I didn't really understand what was happening, because they're not fully paying attention and they miss some of the nuances of those things, and they think like, when did she shoot a dog? Like that, they never talk about that again, and they don't realize that that's well, why is he walking arm in arm with a 50-year-old? That was kind of gross when he starts picturing her as her young self. So I don't know, Greg, what do you think?
This is going to be a tiny bit of a walk to get there, but I swear I'm going to the question, which is, so my daughter was playing basketball out on the sidewalk yesterday, and she tripped and fell and got a real scrape on her nose, and just is very sweet. She's fine, but she just looks really scratched up. So I sent a picture of this to my mom, and I was like, remember the year my school photo, I had that giant scrape on my face? Look at this, like father, like daughter. And my mom responded and explained, yes, I remember the year you hit your face on a mailbox while riding your bike. And those, just to give listeners a peek into my childhood, those are two separate incidents. I one time ran into a mailbox on my bicycle, and a separate time I tripped, and I was actually like carrying my dog's leash when the dog was too powerful. He dragged me on our dirt driveway, and I got a giant scrape like the day before school picture. So my like third grade picture, I have a giant scraped up face. And like, I was sitting there looking at my phone where my mom conflated these two completely different things. And I was like, I really need to tell her she's wrong. And then I was like, why is this worth opening up? Is this worth making my mom feel bad to be like, you know, that funny anecdote you tell your friends? It's entirely wrong, and you're conflating these two ideas. And my answer was like, no, why on earth would I do that? Why would I conflate those? Like, who does it hurt to have her get to share that story? Sure, it's a little embarrassing, but who cares? And
print the legend.
So I will say that's my roundabout way of saying, like, I do think this film is really leaning into this fact that memory is in no way reliable and completely subjective in a way that I think your average person does not think about. I think we study things like unreliable narratives in literature. We study films like Rashomon, and we study fill in all the blanks. And so we think about this a lot, but I don't think your average movie going public actually spends that much time concerned with it. They're like, things happened to me and that's what happened. And that's how I remember them. And I do think the interplay of the story that happens versus our version of it, then versus what that makes us think about what could happen, is a really fruitful place to pick up on. And where I see the movie playing with this is when Zendaya is desperately trying to justify the emotion she felt as a 15-year-old, as a 30-year-old telling this story. I found it really compelling where she's like, well, and then the girl like pushed me. And he's like, so she pushed you like a normal way kids push each other. Like, he does not buy the reasoning she had. And that's because the reasoning was monstrous. But it's also like, Zendaya can't explain, Emma can't explain, I keep going to her actress name. Emma can't explain in enough detail the subjectivity of being in that moment. And I think that is so interesting to kind of plumb the depths of. And when I teach students narrative, it's really hard to get them to take that leap of like, how would somebody outside of your subjectivity express these ideas? And look, I don't think your average moviegoer is going to leave this being like, yes, memory is subjective and we should all think about the gap in the but at the same time, like, I do think PT is right to bring up dream scenario, and like, this is a guy who's interested in the ways our minds work and the ways they reflect, and dream scenario becomes a kind of meditation on virality. And like, it's really fascinating in that movie to kind of unpack that. And I think this is just as fascinating with the way our memories work and the way we can rewrite those memories. And the fact then in the present, I really love, and it sounds perverted, but I really love when Zendaya is suddenly in lingerie with the gun. And he's like so confused and bizarre because he's like both turned on and not turned on. And he's like shocked. And like, it's a shocking image as a viewer because you're like, no, like that would not be acceptable, at least in the parts of the internet celebrity world I go to, right? That we couldn't embrace a kind of right ideology from our kind of modern Hollywood celebrities. And I do think for him, it's that kind of collapse of these very separate ideas. And it's all folded into the fact that he's not American too, right? Like, that is such a brilliant choice within that he can't possibly understand this or understand how you got there. So that was a long ramble, mostly revealing my childhood. I'll go talk to a therapist instead of you two later. But I do think it's like, it's so core to this film. And when PT said that this is what really made him excited about this movie, like that this movie was about talking about issues, that was at the core of that for me.
I just want to add, that was a great story. I apologize that you also have to deal with the legends being printed. I will just say, having climbed the hill, having pushed that rock up a hill multiple times, it doesn't stick. If you change it, it just rolls back down. But I do think him being British is crucial to this, because I do think about the people I know who are from other countries who are in America, and some of them have children, and they're like, what is going on? Like, this is insane. And how that's so different. But I also like that it not only makes it sort of harder for him to grasp the concept, it also almost makes it easier for him to be like, I don't know, you guys are all messed up. I guess it's a thing that happens. We'll just throw that out there. That's what we're going to do. So, I think that's all. I wanted to add that's part of the complexity of the story, is that like, it gives him an easy out to be like, America's all messed up. And Rachel Alana Haim calls him out on that. But also, like, there's ways in which Rachel's character is wrong about certain things, but that's a different topic.
Well, we can also think about the director himself, because I don't know that much about him, but the one thing I do know is that he's Norwegian, right? And so I think that might explain sort of like American audiences responding poorly to him. But I do view the approach specifically to like mass shootings and guns in America, like from kind of like an outsider's curiosity. You know what I mean? Like where, like, especially to me, what was so smart was when he got that book in the mail of like the photographers, the book of photographers' work that was like women with guns. And because I think without really, and at no point does he have a monologue where he's like, well, this book tells me that America has a really strange, like erotic but also disgusted relationship with with violence and guns, or you know what I mean? There was like an over explanation of the role of that book of photographs in his thinking about this that was not stated, but that was but that to me added like so much in terms of like, well, he's trying to like and then I would also say the director like is trying to understand how and why this could happen in the first place, right? Like what is like, and you know, Charlie is doing it because he wants to find a way to still get married to Emma and be okay with this, right? And so he's reaching for reasons. Some of it he's trying to fabricate stories that can kind of rationalize what she did was okay, or that it was okay, like it's okay to live with knowing that she did that. But then at the same time, like it's just a lot of confusion that he has about like none of this makes any sense. But I think I really like, Greg, your comment about subjectivity, and in that moment, the scene you're talking about where she's trying to explain what happened to her when she was 15, and we see the kind of like her getting pushed into the water or whatever, and specifically what she says when he questions it is like, well, that was just one example. And I think that speaks to the impossibility of her sharing, and that extends to the marriage thing too, of like when two people are in a relationship with each other and get married, it's impossible to like just transfer all of your thoughts, memories, and experiences to another person, right? And that's inevitably going to be incomplete when you do that. And so she's kind of being like, why are you being weird about this? Obviously, to tell you about this, I had to choose one memory and share one memory as a representative example. That's just like what storytelling is, right? Whereas he is like searching for the impossible. He wants a totality, right? He wants to completely understand everything. And like obviously he's right to start asking a lot of questions, and I think that is in general that is the right move. He does a lot of wrong things in this movie, but like that in of itself, his like, well, we should talk about this and I want to know more about it, I want to understand it, like that in of itself is good. But I think his expectations are really unrealistic in terms of how much of that he can actually achieve, and that's sort of where the problem is, right?
Yes, I will. I also, though, the details you were picking out, like that moment when she's trying to be like it was like this. That is good. You know, that's good in terms of the sort of the haziness of memory and the difficulty of how it works, and kind of conflating a lot of things into like one, like, oh yeah, all these things. There was one mailbox and one picture, and that's my memory, and I've made it the one thing. That being pushed into this pond by a kid at her high school was like it. That was like the thing that comes to mind, even though when you say it, you're like, who cares? It's interesting that this is, again, this was a post movie unpacking. And I want to say Jasmine said it first. We were riffing on each other. But I think interesting to note, you know, they're doing the thing where they're sitting around the table at the tasting. It's like, what's the worst thing that happened? What is it? Mike. Mike goes first, and he was being attacked by a dog, and he basically put the girl he was dating between him and the dog, which is not great. But you know, little did he know what was coming down the road. We have Rachel, who potentially, like, you know, imprisoned someone overnight. We can come back to talk about Rachel and her thing. But then Charlie's thing is, he's like, I don't know, I never really did anything wrong. I guess I bullied someone when I was 14. And everyone's like, who cares? It doesn't mean anything. You're a kid. You're not developed, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I was bullied when I was 14 and 15, and then almost had this reaction. And everyone's like, that's a disaster. You're a terrible person. So like, I remember Jasmine asking, being like, is it relevant that without her even like seeming to consciously think about it, that basically she's trying to justify her feelings to someone who just said he was the person on the other side of it, that he was the person who did that. And also that, like, never mentioned in this, but seems important is like I don't know if there's any other black kids in the school that when we go have the flashbacks, she's the only one and people are picking on her, and she's in Louisiana and had just moved to that school, and it looks like a private school, so like that kind of has another like element to it maybe. And there's a racial dynamic that's never really discussed necessarily, but like between the two of them, that he's a white man and she's a black woman, that it's sort of like suddenly she has to justify these feelings she had to a white guy who just said that he was a bully when he was in high school. And like, it's not just that she has to be like, oh, well, I was being bullied, but like all of the bullying had just been like dismissed as not a big deal and not even bad. Like, why would you even say that was bad? That doesn't count. And so how can she justify the way she was feeling, even though in the moment when you are being bullied, it's the worst thing and it's awful and, can put you in a deep sense of despair. So that dynamic was really interesting, and stuff like that is why I'm like, this movie might be like excellent. Like it might actually like have so many pieces that are working so well and kind of being laid out in a very subtle way. I'm pretty excited to like revisit this.
Well, I just want to add to your point that he says, well, when they're dismissing his bullying, he's like, oh, and the kid like moved away. It's like, wait, what? Like what? It was so serious that a family relocated to get away from the cyberbullying.
But then he backpedals and said, well, maybe that was a coincidence. Like, so with him, I think, I don't know if the characters alone are supposed to kind of react this way, or if we are also supposed to react this way. But my impression was that he, like the way that he answered the question and with being kind of vague and cagey and like, well, I don't know, like kind of flustered by it, like meant that he was kind of reaching for an answer, and really he didn't have an answer. Like he's been like hasn't done anything wrong his whole life until this movie. And that, which I do want to talk about that and kind of his arc in this movie in relationship to Emma. But I like, that's how I read that scene, was that like he kind of was like, sure, that it was more that he perceived what he did as cyberbullying, and instead of it actually being cyber, you know what I mean? Like he was just trying to come up with something so that he can have an answer.
I agree. That's how I felt in the moment. But like, it was looking back, it's like, oh, but maybe he was doing the same thing that Rachel was doing, which when Rachel told the story, it was like this slow kid who I don't really like asked me to go look at an RV in the woods, and we did. And then for some reason I pushed him, I made him go in a closet, and I had the instinct to lock him. And then I left and I never knew what happened. And they were like, what do you mean? Like there was like, and she's like, well, they found him, but like the next day. And it's like, so you did know what happened. So it's sort of like she is evolving her story and like try to lessen the impact of it. So I don't know. You're right. Like it could be that he never did anything wrong, but like it was. This is why I think it's so interesting, because like watching it going in blind, I was like, oh, he's stretching to find something. But then thinking about it from the perspective of the person who hasn't gone yet, who knows they have this terrible thing, and the terrible thing was partially at least motivated by being bullied by someone, that having just heard someone like talk down what they were doing, he's talking down what he's doing. But like, she doesn't have a moral high ground to call him on that. But like that, I feel like that just like adds that extra wrinkle to like how difficult that like attempt to present it was. The biggest mistake in the movie is her answering that question accurately. Like she really needed to just come up with something else.
Right.
Like, I'm not saying she kept it a secret for her whole life, but like, in retrospect,
in that moment. Yeah.
Like, the regret is probably like, I should have said I kicked a dog once, or even I had my dad's gun and I aimed it at a dog. Like she could have said that and it would be like, that's awful. Right. So I don't know.
Well, and I think we just, since I presumably are headed towards the end of this episode, we have to shout out Alana Haim, who is like the perfect heel in this movie. Like she is so toxic and unlikable, and just, I don't remember Licorice Pizza particularly well, but she kind of played like a little bit of a dream summer girl, like, oh, the kind of not quite a manic pixie dream girl, but like, oh, isn't she wonderful? And in this, like, by halfway through the movie, every time she was on screen, I was like, I hate her so much. And like, she really just leaned into that so beautifully well. I think it was a really good performance, but it's kind of easy to dismiss because of the type of character she played. So, and then the all-timer of her drunken bridesmaid speech, that is like just so insanely off the rails, and like it was really well done. And I often bump on drunk acting, and she, I think, hit the right tones across it. So you know, I did enjoy that this is the second movie she was in this year featuring a fictional Massachusetts art museum. I don't know if that's her lane now, but you know, she was the wife in The Mastermind. For people that don't know, she was married to Josh O'Connor. So sorry, that was technically last year. I see why my comment confused you, PT. But
confused.
you know, within
I was
a
gonna
year,
say, if we're gonna do that, then you got to add one battle after another. Let's not forget she's in that too.
Yeah,
true, and but not
Very
playing
briefly.
in a museum, to my knowledge.
True. Doesn't Charlie also call her out as a hypocrite, or tries to, where he's like, "You actually did a terrible thing,
Right.
and why are we judging?"
And
Emma
tells the
for like
version,
only
like,
thinking about doing a terrible thing. Yeah.
yes, tells the version of what that actually sounds like it was, not the like, oh, we were just kids and it was funny.
Right.
Which I again, in the play of the subjectivity of memory, I think you know, we probably all had people like that at school where you're like, yeah, we teased him, but you know, he was kind of weird. And it's like, well, wait, no, you were a bully. Like just because a kid was a little weird or a little slow doesn't mean you get to just treat them like that.
And also her first scene is at the, I mean, I don't know if it's not the same coffee shop, but they're at like a cafe. It's Emma, the coworker, and Rachel, and it's like, oh, I sort of like, I hope you don't cry because you're ugly when you cry. And like, you know, not you, like all women are, but it's like there's still that kind of that there's some of that mean girl thing there. And so yeah, the fact that she's not that different from the girls in the high school does seem like it could be relevant. I will say I was a little, I don't think it's wrong, but I was a little surprised the degree to which the reaction I saw online was like, this is the most unlikable character in any movie that's come out in like a long time. That people really, really hate her. And like, it's all rooted in something and it's fair. But yeah, I was like, okay.
I saw a bunch of articles that were like, Rachel is the true villain of the drama. And I was like, what is going on with this?
Well, that's why I did add like probably too last minute. I asked like, who's the villain of this? Because there is that like this, she's the real villain. And I mean, I've also seen like readings of this that's like, this is anti woke in a positive way from people who don't like woke, because it's all about like her performative outrage and it's like condemning that, and it's saying like, oh, we don't really do that, which I don't think. I think that's too simplistic a reading.
I read that more as her again being a hypocrite, because it was like she's like totally flips the switch in terms of being judgmental when there's something personal for her at stake. You know what I mean? Like so when she's talking about her own terrible thing that she did, she's like, well, like I didn't say he was mentally disabled. I said he was a little slow. And like she tries to kind of like backpedal all this stuff. And then the second it's like, oh, you should know my cousin was injured and put in a
which is also not, that's not her thing. That's stolen valor. Like, what are you talking about? No one cares. Get over it.
Exactly the kind of thing you hear all the time. That's to me why it's genius. Because like, you forgot that my cousin is in a wheelchair. She has to deal with that every day, and it's a burden on me. Right?
I was there on 9/11. Like you were at the World Trade Center. No, I was in Columbus, but I saw it on TV. It's like, okay, like that doesn't mean you were alive. Whatever. Yeah.
So I want to take what we were talking about with Rachel and kind of like zoom out to talk about like a theme that I sort of saw throughout the movie of sometimes. And this again, like maybe we're still in a rhetorical situation, because I feel like we spend so much time as teachers teaching logical reasoning. And this movie really challenges that notion, because it's like sometimes people just do stuff. Like we don't need a neat and tidy explanation that's like, oh, well, when they were 12, they saw their friend die in a car accident. Or, oh, when they were, you know what I mean? Like we don't have to have causal reasoning for everything that people do. Sometimes people just do stuff in the moment and it doesn't make any sense. And so like the idea that like Rachel, and we can see that with like each character, where it's like Rachel is like, I don't know, I just, for some reason, I just decided to push him in the closet and close the door. Right. Like, and then Emma's sort of thing was like, she didn't have a particularly good reason for either why she wanted to do it or why she stopped doing it. You know what I mean? Like there's no clear, like this, therefore this kind of moment. And then with Charlie, I think the lesson, this is how I want to get to talking a little bit more about Charlie's arc, like the lesson that he ultimately learns in the end, that I think kind of like restores balance in their relationship, is that because of the scene where he's in the office and like suddenly starts trying to make out with, is it Misha is his like assistant, and like I didn't even think in the moment,
or Poor Things, right? Yeah, sorry. I mean, obviously not Emma Stone, but styled exactly like Emma Stone in Poor Things. I thought,
right.
Yeah.
And that like that he kind of has like I don't know what came over me. I'm just really stressed out. Like there's no rational. He didn't want to even necessarily do that. He didn't intend to do that. It was just some weird thing he did that we now have to.
He
live
also
with the
stopped himself. He didn't go through with it. Just like the shooting.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think his big learning experience is like he starts being like, I have no idea how to understand what she's telling me that she's done or thought about doing, and like there's no way I can understand her experience. So by the end, it's almost like he's worse than her, off than her a little bit, or at least they're equal, and that's how they're able to sit across from each other in that diner and actually start again. Whereas before it didn't work because there was still kind of like that imbalance in understanding of the other's experience. But anyway,
just he needed to feel like he had also done something that like he had to lower himself to feel like, okay, this won't be like a constant thing where I unconsciously or you know, with against my own will have to hold this over you, and you will always think that's what's happening. If you have something you can hold over me, we can reset. And like, you know, it again, it's not very obvious. I think they do a very good job of keeping it subtle. Like from the beginning, her thing is like she wants to give second chances, and it's like, why don't you try that again? Then they do their little reset game sometimes where they're like, let's start this conversation over, which makes a lot of sense once you learn that like she feels like her whole life is like needing a second chance because of what she almost did. So I that was, you know, that was unexpected. I also like the way that ties into I mean, again, part of why I'm like, this movie is actually like really, really good is like all these characters who have like just crazy things that like come out of them. And when he asked me, Misha, like, what would you do if Blake like confesses to you? And she's like, I would call the police. You would call the police on a like 15-year-old threat? Like, what does that mean? That doesn't make any sense. But her thing is, worst thing she's ever done is she cheated on a guy that she was with. So like, it felt like that was him being like, you know, like kind of in a way lashing out. And, you know, it is worse than just cheating on a guy because like he's clearly her boss, or at least her superior at Greg's favorite Cambridge Art Museum, the well-known Cambridge Museum of Art that we all have been to on field trips, but it doesn't exist. People who are from Boston. You know, that it's, you know, that's pretty bad. Like she's actually really pretty nice about it, and I can't believe she still goes to the wedding after that. Like I would feel like at the very least, like, oh, but
at least we can pay for the blouse, right? Like, it was like a violent rip at that moment.
She does say something at one point where it's just like, I lost all my buttons, or like you took all my buttons off, and that's very funny.
The second chances thing I feel like is so central to the Emma character, not just because of what you said, but because it kind of ties her explanation of fantasizing about the shooting with sort of her personality. Because there are three moments I'm thinking of that are connected. One is like her dad in his speech talking about, oh, she always used to perform all these characters and like kind of take on these different personas. When she's trying to explain like the whole aesthetic of being a shooter and how that was like alluring to her, she sort of talks a little bit about how she's like, well, I created this character for myself in my head. And then there's the third thing is like, well, and then that ultimately ties to her being like, can we just do another take? Right? Can we just start over and roll, like her interest in role playing with Charlie as a way to solve problems. Right. You know, and like initially that doesn't work for him. And then at the end, it finally does. But I think
I liked that fake out a lot too. That like they try to like, let's just reset and forget this happened, and he really can't. And then, as PT said, it takes him getting kind of lowered all the way down. As you two both were talking, it makes me think like, you know, many people, but I hear it primarily from Amanda Dobbins on Big Picture, there's too much therapy in movies lately and too much like let's explain trauma. So when you both have been talking about like maybe we just don't know why somebody does something, and that's life, and that's like just figuring out how to proceed forward without being able to explain it or justify it or see the A to B cause of it. And I do think that I'm joining PT in the maybe this is excellent corner. Like pushing back on that is pretty good, and I think there might be something powerful to that in the context of relationships. I'm not actively dating. I am happily married and do not remember a time I was dating. I do think to make sure people are thinking about this, and that like part of being in a relationship is eventually taking the leap with the limited information you have and what you can go with, and trying to figure out, this is very much my favorite romantic thing of the last decade is Chidi on The Good Place, when he's finally convinced, oh, there are no soulmates, there's just people who get up every day and they do the work, and that's what a romance is. And I love that so much, as like this is another version of that. Like you're not going to just meet cute at a coffee shop and have the perfect story to tell everybody and the perfect speech and the choreographed dance. You're actually going to have to do the work of being together. And I think that's pretty powerful and cool.
And we like the opening scene in retrospect is so genius because it does exactly what you're saying. Like it like is a microcosm of him assuming certain things about her, thinking he knows what's going on, and then completely learning something revelatory that changes everything. Like when he figures out that she didn't answer him because she's deaf in one ear. Right. And then that's the first time she says, do you want to just try that again? Right. And it's because she's like, yeah, I know you didn't understand me. And so like, I'm going to give you that grace. And so we can take another, we can like have another try at it. And like, that's such a defining thing in their relationship, because he's like, he in that moment is being the underhanded one. You know what I mean? Like he's the one who's lying about having read the book that he sees her reading. And even when he confesses that in most rom-coms, that would be like a meltdown point of like, I can't believe you lied to me. Right. We never have that scene. Instead, she says something kind of weird and off color. Like, and it's like, and then to make it okay. Right. To be like, I don't really care. It's fine. Like, or maybe she just says it's weird. I don't remember how she responds.
I love his friend Mike's be like, why didn't you read the book between the coffee shop and the date? And he's just like, it feels almost worse. That's too much. Like that's overdoing it.
It all goes back. We haven't shouted her out yet, and she's a brilliant part of this. To the choreographer, the wedding dance choreographer, who says it's a wedding, it's all performative.
Yeah,
is also. I mean, you didn't hit Thesis Please, but we could offer it's all performative on Thesis Please, meaning all of who we are is a performance of the parts we want and we don't. Did you guys already hear who the dance instructor is?
No.
It's the choreographer of LTR favorites, Testament of Ann Lee, and After Sun. She's a working choreographer who
That's amazing.
Just dove in and did the scene. I assume did the dance and then also offered to play the choreographer.
So,
great detail.
Something that I was going to say, I was going to maybe wait for Oscar's Watch, which potentially is coming very soon, but maybe this isn't, this is technically outside of Oscar's Watch, that I have to say how proud I am of myself for making sure that at the LTRs, we have the featured performance category. I could easily see many people from this movie being nominated. Yeah. The choreographer, potentially one of them, but really the wedding photographer, who is Zoe Winters, who is absolutely incredible. Like, okay, well, we'll shoot your parents, then we'll shoot his parents, and we'll shoot the grandparents. Oh, TBD on shooting the grandparents. Okay, all of that plus
that's the moment I knew what this movie was. I was like, oh, all right, this is what we're in for, and I was all in. That was the cackle. It was
definitely. I think maybe I was laughing so hard at the wine drinking scene and. What was almost going to be my opening quote, which I was, I think, the only person who laughed at it, which is after the whole like sort of blow up of like she's revealed what's happened, and the couple, Mike and Rachel, are sitting in the hallway, and Mike just picks up his phone and goes 7 minutes. And it's just like that. I laughed at that so hard, and most people in the theater didn't. But then soon after that, we're at the wedding photographer, and everyone got it. The second DJ who I thought absolutely like Spearhead.
Yep.
That guy is great. And yeah, so there's a lot of
DJ, who.
Yes,
we didn't even
that's
talk
true.
about her.
Like,
another person we don't know the truth of. Like, we only know the speculation and the things we saw. Blake, Misha's boyfriend, who has like 3 lines and all of them are amazing. And 3 lines and a headbutt. Like, what a performance.
All right, that might be our cue to go into Oscars watch.
Nope. No.
Okay, sorry.
Sit down, kid. I got to talk to you for a second. There's a problem in the criticism of this movie that I take great offense to, which I have seen many respected outlets say this movie gets Boston wrong. And I would like to say, as a yuppie who lives in Boston, Boston is not just sports bars with guys named Jimmy being racist. This is absolutely Boston, right? This is so familiar to the worlds I and my wife have traveled in. And listeners, I'm in a crappy unfinished basement surrounded by Star Wars figures. I'm not like upper crust, this kind of yuppie privileged class. And yet the way in which everybody's like, oh, this doesn't really look like Boston. The apartment absolutely looks like Boston. That is a brownstone in the South End, not totally unlike one Jen lived in, although I don't think you had a spiral staircase in your one, right? And then,
wait, I think we did outside. Like,
doesn't it I'm sure that is in the South End or Back Bay. Like, it totally works as a part of that. All of the venues. So I guess the art museum is technically in Andover. It's a private gallery up there, but I have been in the 7 Stars bookstore in Central Square, which is where they have that brief scene. You can almost see the nerdy gaming store across the street where I often frequent. And then I very often have been to Andy's Diner outside of Porter Square. So while, yes, you can complain that they say they go downstairs from their South End brownstone into the diner outside Porter Square, that is 100% a real Boston space. And I was debating with somebody why they chose that diner, and we came to the hypothesis it actually has 2 giant rooms, because the iconic Boston diner is the 24-hour one near South Station, but that's like a tiny old metal tin can. And so this one, you can put the whole crew and everybody in one side and then shoot the other side. But that is a working diner. I don't believe I've sat in that booth, but I've been in one on that wall a few times. So anyway, shut up, rest of the world. Just because it doesn't look like the town doesn't mean it's not Boston. This is very much a Boston movie and entirely shot, at least in the Boston area, but I think mostly in town.
To clarify, is the critique the sort of tenor of the people and the quality of the buildings, or is it the geography? Like, I could see folks being like, I could see this because I've heard it, where it's like, oh, you get on 93 there, and then suddenly you're on 495. That doesn't make any sense.
No,
that's one thing.
Sketch. You're mixing up your 2 things. Back to Crime 101. I think it's primarily people don't think this is what Bostonians look like. I would point you no further than the love interest in The Departed, who is styled. Her apartment. Emma is frequently wearing like I think she has a Harper's Weekly t-shirt. Mm-hmm. She has a Harvard t-shirt. Like, this is a type of woman I see everywhere around the city. Like, this is just a type, and it's the same type they use in The Departed. But suddenly everybody's like, well, they don't really know Boston because there's no guy sucker punching a queer or whatever. And I'm like, no, let's not do this.
Kid.
All right.
Yeah,
on that note,
this is not about Boston. It's about Cambridge, and I think that's all you have to say, and that makes a lot more sense.
This is where Affleck and Damon are from, not where they fake that they're from.
Not where they pretend they're from.
There's the thesis. Lock it up. That's it. Partagast, whoever does our thing.
All right. On that note, we'll go to Oscars watch. All right. So I'm imagining this is going to be a pretty short conversation. Does this get any Oscar nominations?
Not as many as it get LTR nominations. That's for sure. I think the interesting thing is it's been very successful. Like, it's not, whatever. It's not banging down the doors of Super Mario Galaxy or anything, but like it's not losing as much as movies usually do week to week across its first couple of weeks. And it's a reasonable sized hit. Is that going to be something that keeps it in the conversation going forward? I doubt it. There has been a lot of talk about how these two very big movie stars are in 3 movies together this year. The other 2 are The Odyssey and Dune Part 3, which are obviously much bigger movies. Is it possible that like at the end of the year, they're like, we should nominate Zendaya for something. And like, why don't we nominate the movie that she was the lead in? And then they come back to the drama. Same for Robert Pattinson, who I think, Zendaya is very good in this movie. I do think one thought I had after leaving it was like, God, Robert Pattinson's on another level. Like, he's so good. Like the scene where he's come back home to the apartment after the wedding and he puts on the song that's like her pump up song for him. And he stands up and just turns around and you could see just from his shoulders the way that he is recomposing himself and then starts kind of like sort of dancing a little bit or like just feeling it. So, I mean, yeah, really good. Again, she is great. I think he's proved himself to be excellent in this. I could see either of them get nominated if there's kind of space for it, which doesn't seem like there would be. I would say, to Jen's point from earlier, I would love this to sneak into a best editing nomination because the editing is so good. And that's where I think the power of this movie is. All that being said, the most likely outcome would be a screenplay, just because there's always space. There's always more space in screenplays than anything else. But I don't know if it'll hold on in the mind of the Academy long enough for that to happen.
And the genre being a moving target a little bit, I think would be a problem there too. Like if people are like, is this supposed to be funny? And like if people decide it is ultimately a comedy, that's working against it, I think, in terms of it getting a nomination. Whereas if it's people classify it more as a drama, then it has a better shot. But
it may finally replace The Martian as the go-to joke for like miscategorization at the Golden Globes if it gets any nominations in musical or comedy, and it's called the drama.
That's pretty funny.
I hadn't thought about that.
If it has a lane, I think it's the Past Lives lane. I know we name checked Materialist, but like Past Lives was earlier than it felt like it should be, and it was just kind of quieter. What's more exciting to me is this is a little bit me being in my A24 bag, but there's a lane opening from Marty Supreme through to this movie of like, oh yeah, adults like to go to the movies. And I do think Zendaya and Pattinson pulled in like some of my student age, like, college kids were probably curious. They like these actors. But I do think we're starting to see a little just like, you still have the paddles out, but there's just a little bit of a pulse on like, let's let adults come to the movie and do something that gets them there a little faster. If it's the buzz around a Marty Supreme or it's the like, you got to see this before it's spoiled type of thing. I mean, this still feels to me like, boy, what an awkward date night. But I do think a lot of couples went out. I think a lot of young people checked it out. My theater, I went at a weird time. I think I went at like 9:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. And yet there was a good chunk of people in my theater, including some people who I got secondhand high off of just from the smell as they walked in. And they stood and clapped for Nicole at the end of the pre-show. So I knew I was in for a good time, and they did not disappoint me in the movie. They had some big gas.
Wow. So you're really pushing Boston in this episode. You're really just check it out, man. This is the best.
I mean, is there any place better? Why would you live somewhere where there's nice weather and like not people who might beat you up just for looking at them wrong?
I feel like this is probably one of those movies that has a much better shot at Golden Globes than it does Oscars. And I think that's okay. I think it you know what I mean? Like if we are like, oh, let's get Zendaya and Robert Pattinson at the Golden Globes, like, I think that's fine. That works out for everybody. I personally would also give this a sound nomination because I think we didn't end up talking about that. Like, and I didn't remember this well enough to chime in when we were talking about what is Emma's perspective or memory and what is Charlie's. But I remembered there were scenes where the sound is really grainy and kind of fuzzy. And I'm like, oh, is that because she's deaf in one ear? So this is supposed to be from her perspective. And I felt like the sound in different scenes felt very different in a way that I thought was really interesting. So that would be my LTR shout out if we did technical categories.
I think here at the end of the episode, I need to officially go on record to say I was wrong when I said the movie is entirely from Charlie's perspective, because it's been nothing but a slow trickle of moments where it's clear that's not true. So I just want to go on record and acknowledge I was incorrect when I said that. Management apologizes for the error.
Well, but I do think it's very biased towards Charlie. So I think you weren't wrong to think that. But in the downward, to go back to Robert Pattinson, his performance edging Zendaya's out a little bit. Part of that's because I think he has more to do. He's reacting to a lot of stuff more.
Yeah.
But just if we haven't really put a pin on it, the downward spiral that he goes throughout this movie is just amazing to watch. It's
absolutely
his implosion you can see in real time. A lot of actors couldn't pull that off, probably. So, also, is that his real accent? I know he's British, but
I was just thinking this was the closest, probably since Cedric Diggory, that I felt like we've heard the real him, because he doesn't have an accent in anything in Twilight.
He's in The King, which
I haven't watched
Chalamet.
No, I didn't watch that.
A king, and he's in it, and I think although maybe he's French in that.
And does he have his accent in Tenet? I think he does, right?
He is British in Tenet.
Yeah. So.
That's the one thing I think I remember from Tenet, is that Robert Pattinson gets to be British.
Well, forwards and backwards, too. Yeah.
I assume Jen would put that, what I just said, for backwards.
I don't have that capability. What do you...
Oh.
That's beyond my pay grade.
It would have made it really good, like Tenet.
Wow. Okay, that's probably a sign that we should stop. So, Greg, you're as always, you're the busiest man on the internet. Where can folks find you? What have you been up to? Plug whatever you want.
Just moments before we recorded this, I recorded a fresh take on 2 new episodes of Maul Shadowlord, the latest Star Wars television show. I record those reactions over on the Rebel Base Card feed, and we do a nice little set of questions each week. I'm hoping to get one or both of these 2 to join us at some point, but I don't book the guests, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. I just say their names enough times that my co-host subconsciously intuits that I might want to talk to them. Other than that, people can find me on Letterboxd at Ion Cannon. Hey, just a shout out, because I think sometimes it's not obvious. PT and I recorded quick takes. Jen just dropped it recently after some nice editing, and that is a spoiler-free episode. So if people are looking for just kind of what to fill up their queue with, check out that episode. I still assert that PT is Affleck and I am Damon, although they caught some strays this episode, so I don't know. Affleck, where can people find you?
Matt, I feel like you don't even realize that I did tag us respectively like that in the post on Instagram, because I also believe that I would be more Ben Affleck, you would be more Matt Damon, and that's mostly because I feel like it's universally agreed Matt Damon makes better choices, and so that was it. Although I do think you're taller than me, so that could be throwing it off a little bit. You could find me on Letterboxd at PT McNiff, PTMCNIFF. You could see all the movies that I've watched lately, and I don't really have anything else necessary to plug, so I am going to just plug this. If you haven't done so, you should sign up at your local library for a membership card. You should support your library, and you should get on board with both Canopy and Hoopla, 2 streaming services that you can access from any library. And if you feel like, oh, but PT, I live in a small town, my library wouldn't have access to something like that, the biggest city near you would likely let you sign up. Like, everyone in Massachusetts can sign up for a Boston Public Library card. Everyone in California can sign up for the San Francisco or Los Angeles public libraries. And you can access this. I have been watching some movies just randomly on Canopy and Hoopla, 70s movies I've been meaning to catch up on, and it's wonderful. It's free. It's a great service. The libraries are important public goods, and you should support them. So that's what I'm going to plug, is you do that if you've not already done so, or utilize your library card to access those services. Transition 2. If you want to follow the show, you can follow the show on Letterboxd. The account is at LTR Pod. You can also follow us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at The Long Take Review. You can email us, thelongtakereview@gmail.com, or you can just subscribe, follow, add, heart, plus, whatever the mechanism is, wherever you get your podcast, wherever you're listening right now, hit that button and wait for new episodes and listen to some old episodes, like that Quick Takes episode, which was generously and masterfully edited by Jen, who was out of town and yet still was editing the episode and clearly interrupted multiple times, as referenced in earlier times in this episode. Wow, on an airplane, she says. Usually a train, now on an airplane. She's just traveling the world editing this show. What a trooper, Jen. Besides in these modes of transportation, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Sopchakchai, SOPCHOCKCHAI, or on Letterboxd at Qui-Gon Jen.
Now that we got to the end of the episode, I can finally reveal, here is the worst thing that I have ever done.
Oh, no. We're not doing that. Nope.
No, just cut. Cut those out.
Thanks for listening. You can follow The Long Take Review on Substack at thelongtake.substack.com. Subscribe for free, and you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops. You'll also receive occasional written reviews of new Star Wars and Marvel. Though my Letterboxd account right now is like on dialysis. It's really, I was trying to get coaching tips from these two right before we started recording, but I think I can come back. I don't know. We'll have to start. You're right. I just got to cut bait and just start logging in the moment.
Jen, what do you think dialysis does?
Wait, but what is the word I actually wanted to say then?
Well, I think life support.
Life support? Life support.
I'm just cycling out my Letterboxd kidneys. I don't know. It's just...
well, maybe it needs a cleanse. I don't know. Like,
okay. Sure.
It needs some...
Sorry.
Wait, but there is a word that sounds like dialysis. That is what I meant. I meant life support. But
I don't know.
There isn't? Okay.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I think for people who have, severe diabetes, dialysis is a necessary life-sustaining treatment. Whatever. Sorry.
We've already spent too long talking.
Yeah. Please end this episode just on the question. Jen, what do you think dialysis is?
The answer is just like her spiel at the end.
No, I don't know why you don't think I'm cutting all of this. Like,